After Hogan's run of national championships, it was thought no one could duplicate the feat. Many experts even felt back-to-back titles would be impossible. Well, how about 5 straight national titles? This quiet gentleman, on and off the court, proved that control was still an important factor in the game, as he held the title from 1983 through 1987. Still a top-ranking pro, let's meet 5-time national champion Mike Yellen.
He won the second game easily, 11-6. Lost the third game. And this is for the money right now. Mike Yellen, the National Racquetball Champion.
Winning 5 consecutive national championships, I think, was something that I definitely didn't plan on winning. It was funny, after I won my first one, I remember Chuck Leve of National Racquetball saying that he didn't think any player would ever win 2 in a row. Hogan had won his string of 4 from 78 to 81. Peck won in 82. After I won in 83, he basically said the competition is so fierce on the tour that we should see a new national champion every year from here on out. And I think it was that kind of lit a little match under my rear and made me really want to go out there and win it a second time, being that he had published that in the magazine. I did play real well the next season and had a big point advantage most of that year and finished as a national champion pretty much hands down because I was far enough ahead of everybody else. But after my second championship, my next 3 were dogfights. I think it was unique in the sense that winning 5 in a row really put me up on the same level, I would guess, or right there with a Hogan. I didn't dominate in the fashion that he did, but winning 5 in a row was something that he hadn't even accomplished as the dominant player in the late 70s and early 80s. I remember all of the matches and all of the people. There were a lot of people that were very influential to me in my career of racquetball. That starts with my base of the Tom Brownlees and my coach Leonard Karpelis and so on. However, the original pro players, the Strandemos, the Brumfields, Keeleys, Surratt, Schmidtke, Zeitman, not to leave any of them out there, Bledsoe, etc. Those guys were very influential and instrumental in my game. Not only did they take time to work with me because they knew I was the next generation, and they were in racquetball not only for the benefits of the dollars and the sponsorship and the travel and what they got out of it, but also for the good of the game. And each one of those players in their own way influenced me and helped me really become a better player and a better person. My coach always taught me to be dependent on yourself only. It doesn't matter who's in the stands watching you. It doesn't matter who your coach is, who your parents are, who this one is, who that one is. When you go play racquetball, you concentrate on what the hell you're supposed to be doing out there on the court. When the shot comes here, it belongs in a certain area. Put it there and don't worry about it. The rivalries back in my early days of racquetball were great. You had company rivalries between Echelon and Leach in those days. Then Leach was sold to DP and became part of Diversified Products, but it was still Echelon and Diversified Products. And you had player rivalries. In the early days, right as I was coming on the scene, you had Halaisher and Strandemo that were with Echelon and Schmidtke. Then you had the Brumfield, Surratt, Keeley, Hogan, so on that were with Leach. And there were great rivalries back and forth because each was trying to establish themselves as number one from the players and the companies. And then I came onto the scenes and became part of the Echelon team, as did guys like Ben Colton and so on to the Leach team. And you had more personalities back in those days with the Brumfields, the Keeleys. Everybody had a certain something about them personality-wise that people could really identify with. It was covered well in the magazines, and people may have never seen a Brumfield play before or a Hogan play or Halaisher, but they knew what to expect the first time they went to the court. They knew Halaisher was going to rant and rave and try to get the referee to change 30 calls, and Brumfield was going to hit his opponent if he didn't get out of the way, and all kinds of things were going to happen. And they were great rivalries. And then after that first generation of players changed, when the Brums and the Keeleys and the Surratts and Strandemos kind of retired from racquetball, you had a great rivalry in Yellen and Hogan, who in the early days were the up-and-comers. Now they were the established number 1 and 2. And even to this day, here we are in 1992, that Yellen-Hogan rivalry still to this day is considered quote, the matchup in racquetball. One neat thing about being with Echelon over the years is that you always knew you were going to be playing with the best equipment out there. They were always the innovator in the industry, and you knew you would have the advantage. And that was clear when Echelon came out with the oversized rackets, and I don't think it was for 3 years that DP, 2 to 3 seasons, that DP ever came out with an oversized racket. and that just cost their players. They couldn't compete with the echelon guys using the oversized rackets, using the old standard size. So there was a big advantage, monetarily, but also play-wise, to be with the leader in the industry. Well, today we're seeing a little difference in the competition versus the olden days. When I talk about olden days, I'm talking mostly, I guess, about the Yellen-Hogan days, when Hogan was on top and then Yellen was on top and the Pecks were in between and so on. In those days, you could pretty much go to a tournament and be assured that 3 of the top 4 players were going to make it to the semifinals. It was either Yellen against Holeisher or Hogan against Peck or vice versa in most cases. Today, we are seeing a difference in the competition out there. There's probably 10 players, the top 10 ranked players, maybe 12, that are capable of winning tournaments and have won a tournament, which is unlike any other era in racquetball. And in that regard, you could wind up coming up against one of these guys being a top player. You could come up against one of these guys in the quarterfinals, even as early as the round of 16. And that makes it a lot tougher. You need to be on your toes from round number 1 now, because you're coming up against some pretty tough competition in your 32s and your 16s today, where in the olden days, we used to cruise through our first 2 matches and not really have a tough match to our quarterfinals. If you're not on top of your game, you could go out early. But when you look at the Andy Roberts and the Drew Kotsticks and the Ruben Gonzalez and Mike Ray and Tim Doyle and all the top players today, Dan Obremski, etc., these guys are all very, very fierce competitors, and they're all right there foaming at the mouth to win their first championship, because they really feel that that would be a stepping stone to them moving ahead of the pack, which is what they consider themselves to be with right now. The way I'm playing now, I might play forever, but I really think I'll take that season by season. As long as I feel I'm competitive and have a chance at winning tournaments and or getting to the semis or finals where I'm one of the top 4 players, or have a chance to finish in the top 4 of some tournaments, I would say that I would probably stay involved in the game. I enjoy all of the benefits and the rewards that I've gotten out of racquetball. I've certainly put my fair share back into the game, and there's no reason to hang around longer than I really should be or deserve to be. And I would feel that would almost take away from what I've accomplished in the game to say that Yellen stayed around until he was 37 or 38 or 40 years old, but for the last 10 years of his career, he was really a non-factor. Why ruin the good thing that I've established and built up for 15 years, and I just have no interest in doing that.
During Yellen's reign in the mid-'80s as the #1 men's player, there was a woman in the WPRA putting together some astonishing numbers too.
Yes, Gene, and contrary to what some men believe, many people feel she's the greatest player of all time.